record.
Great. Thanks for joining us, guys. People are still rolling in, so that's good news. Welcome. It is Thursday evening, another webinar, and a great one we've got. We've got Jackie with us, and yeah, like always, the Q&A button is at the bottom of the screen. So if you've got a question throughout the evening, then do just stick it in there, and we will try and come to them at some point. As always, Steve then does a little spiel about how he knows the guests.
A little spiel.
Yeah.
I just read Rich Wade. He's played for school and district. He said his mum liked him. So that's one thing. At least someone did.
Brilliant.
Actually, a good old friend of mine is on, Matt Murphy, tonight. We weren't just teenagers together. We've known each other since we were 5, and we're still best mates. So he'll be remembering back to playing football and being a teenager, which had many a good time.
Tom's just put in the Q&A, an absolute legend, playing local football with school friends and down the park.
Brilliant. Very modest.
I don't know what classes you as an absolute legend, Tom. I want to know.
Right, yeah, thanks for that. Professional hat on. So Jackie's with us tonight. Jackie and I have known each other since we started as CCDs, which was about 5.5 years ago. Jackie, would it be?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5.5 years ago. So Jackie, who's CCD county coach developer for, I think I'm right in saying, Cambridgeshire and Huntingdonshire, because that's
correct.
Kind of a county, isn't it? About that big.
Don't dismiss the county. It is a county.
So it's and as some of you will know, I was CCD for Gloucestershire. So our paths crossed every time we went to St George's Park, usually in the bar. Would that be right, Jackie? You were usually the last one standing. But no, we worked together, and I remember you coming to Gloucestershire FA. Why on earth you would make that trek to Gloucestershire FA from where you are? And we were discussing before we come on. It was for a mod 3, wasn't it? We were doing the FA Youth Module 3s. So you came over and worked with us for a bit on that. Jackie's an ex-colleague, and as with many CCDs, we've kept in touch since the inevitable happened last year, and she's a good friend of mine as well as a brilliant colleague. So Jackie, before we start, are you happy to give people a bit of a whistle-stop tour of your background, your coaching background, and up to today, to what you're doing today, please?
Yeah, I think as we had a little chat in the week, didn't we, Steve? So I think it kind of brings why I'm here tonight and delivering this workshop. It kind of will bring it to life a little bit if I give you a little bit of a backstory. So in relation to myself, I started as a volunteer working in Barnardo's, and I kind of ended up doing all of the sporting activities, and from that I decided to take my level 1 coaching award, which was actually called junior team managers at the time. So I did that award, and then I basically progressed up and ended up coaching at Wimbledon in London when it was Wimbledon FC. Coached at Wimbledon, worked within schools as well, so I became a teacher but also coached. So I had like a dual background in regard to what I was doing and where I was working. And I tended to work mainly with primary years top end, and then obviously all the way through secondary. So this age group became the age group that I tended to work more with. And I was fortunate enough year before 2019 to get on my Advanced Youth Award, which would have been one of the qualifications I really wanted to get, because I loved the Youth Award so much and just wanted to kind of see how much I would progress and develop with the Advanced Youth Award. And part of the Advanced Youth Award, you have to do like a case study, but because I wasn't coaching within elite environment at the time, we were asked to link our project to our job. So as I was a coach developer at the time, I thought, I'll develop a CPD event, and We did the psychosocial side of the AYA course because they break everything down into the 4 corners, into the blocks. Did the social and psychological side, and just was blown away in regard to how the brain develops and the impact that can have on the player, and then the behaviours that shows, and how we as coaches don't necessarily always deal with that, don't deal with it in the correct way. So I thought I would try and create a little CPD that would support grassroots coaches in the first instance to understand a little bit of the backstory about brain development in teenagers. But it's not, I'm not here as a neuroscientist, I'm not here as a psychologist. My background is coaching and teaching, and this is literally a support mechanism for coaches in regard to giving them a little bit of knowledge about how the brain works and what you could implement within your coaching sessions or your session planning to support players at this age group. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an understanding of why I'm here. Currently, obviously we were made redundant in the summer last year, and fortunately I got a role at MK Dons. So I'm head of education and ops at MK Dons Academy at this current time. So that's me.
Good stuff. Thanks, Jackie.
That's all right. All right, so a little bit about the overview. So the aims and objectives for this evening are hopefully to provide you with a little bit of an understanding in regard to the teenage brain and the feelings and emotions that players in the youth development phase may be going through. Hence my little question at the beginning in regard to what you were like, because majority of you came up with characteristics of what you were like, but not the actual feelings or emotions that you were actually going through at that time. And it's really key in regard to this teenage brain, because as we go through it, you'll see that your feelings become more important and will kind of overtake anything else that you're feeling at that time. And then this workshop will hopefully provide a ground for a second workshop, which will help coaches understand what I'm saying in a practical way. So I'm looking to develop a second workshop that will be practically based. Okay. So key messages from this evening. It is the biggest stage of development. It's the second biggest stage of development happens between the ages of 10 and 25. So in regard to understanding how the brain works, it's really important. And the 4th bullet point down says about the feeling brain is 5 more times powerful than the thinking brain. So hence trying to get you to think about those emotions, because problem solving will go out the window because your emotions will take over. So remember that the feeling brain is 5 times more powerful than the thinking brain. As coaches, we've got to try to then accept that emotion, but then deal with the behavior. So if you understand the emotions that they're going through, you'll be better placed to deal with the behaviors. And we'll come up with some strategies that you can utilize to support you with those behaviors. I've put there, invest in a relationship, because I think specifically at this age group, because they're going through so many differences within their life, if you invest in a relationship and you connect to your players, you're going to get more buy-in and you'll be able to support them develop more. I've put at the top about the attachment theory, and I know you had Sally on a couple of weeks ago, and she talked quite a lot about the attachment theory, because it starts at birth through up to the ages of 6 to 18 months, where the main attachment theory starts because of your primary caregiver. But in relation to teens, the secondary attachment becomes really key in their teenage years, but their attachment won't be with their primary caregiver. It will be more with their peers, because they're looking to fit in and looking to become socially accepted within their peer group. So their peers become more important than like their carers or their parents. All right, and that's again why sometimes you get that fight or flight with their parents, and they're always trying to like argumentative and challenging boundaries and so on and so forth, right? So I think it's key that if we try to create an environment that encourages learning, we're actually going to get more buy-in from teenage players, and hopefully that will come out throughout the workshop. So a little bit of overview in regard to what's going on in their world. For us, do you look at the player or the person? So in relation to their world, we might need to understand the things that they're into so that we get that connection. So it was really weird that today we was on a webinar with the scholars at the club, and one of the presenters asked the boys about gaming, and like it's amazing how much of their word revolves around like social media and gaming and consoles and trying to beat their mates over the internet on a game. And it's like, it just kind of blew me away in relation to all of the questions, and all of the answers came back to kind of gaming. And I know it's maybe slightly different at this moment in time because they're kind of locked in a lot in relation to COVID, but I was thinking, wow, that's quite, I didn't even realize that how big a part of their world gaming was. So that was quite interesting for me. But I think you need to kind of understand what they're into and what their likes are, and how they connect with their friends, because it's different to the way that we connected with our friends. Well, specifically me when I was their age. So what's going on in their world, because that can then actually have an impact on you and how you develop your relationship. But I think for us, in regard to our role, what we need to think about is the impact on the session and what is our it. So I will refer to our it throughout the webinar, but our it might be putting on an all singing, all dancing session plan, and focusing on one element. And actually their it might be that they just want to come and play. So do we know what their it is, and does our it and their it link? So that's about that kind of impact on the session. Are we trying to design sessions that actually are not fit for purpose or fit for the players that we're working with? And because in an ideal world, we want to just have this all singing and dancing workshop. And then in regard to the practical ideas, I'll give you some ideas in relation to what players' strengths are at that age, and how we can actually tie into those kind of strengths and attributes that they're having. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm trying to take it. But into this is kind of a space where I thought we could maybe ask a question in regard to what do you feel is your players that you're coaching or working with, what is their it? What are they all about? So do you know what their it is? That was a chance to open up the chat box a bit, Libby.
Sorry, yeah, while Libby's doing it, the it then, is it their motivation, Jackie? Is it the why? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, so because our it might be different to theirs.
Yeah.
So I've noticed it recently over the last few weeks. It's like the coaches that I might be working with are putting on session plans, but actually why are they putting a session plan on? They're putting a session plan on because they're trying to get an outcome in relation to playing out from the back, for instance. But if the player doesn't actually understand what playing out from the back is, they're not gonna understand this fancy session plan. So to start with, you need to understand what that player knows, then you can build and develop a session around it. But also, if that player's there just for fun, if you're doing a playing out from the back with like receive on your back foot, play it out here, they're not going to be interested, and your session plan is going to bomb, and then you'll get annoyed, and then who do you take that aggression or anger out on? Take it out on the player. But ultimately it's because you don't know what the player wants.
Well, I can see there's some bits coming through, and Libby, I'll leave you to address that in a minute. But what if there's different its? if that makes sense. What have you got different hits within a group? Or is that just the difficulty of it all?
It is difficult, but obviously there's ways in regard to how you design your session that you can support all of them. And I think as we go through this, it becomes more apparent that if you've got 16 players in your squad, you've got 16 individual projects. So in relation to when you're delivering a session, you've got to think about your 16 players. They're all there to have fun and enjoyment, but then you can actually break it down to 2 or 3 for that session in regard to the content that you're trying to get out. So there might be 3 players that you actually focus on that week, and then the others you might have questions or scenarios that will get a buy-in, but it's trying to think that actually they're all individual projects rather than just one big team.
Okay.
Gary's asking, are we talking about their needs and wants?
I think again I think it depends on the environment that you're coaching in. So in relation to where I am at the moment, I've noticed quite a vast difference in regard to the needs are not necessarily always player led. The needs are sometimes due to the club and what the club are looking for. But for me personally, I think there should be a little bit of both in regard to what are they needing at the time. So some of them will need, because of the environment that they're playing at, there might be an emphasis more on like the result. So we need to take that into consideration. But then it's in relation to what they want. And what do they always want? They want a game. So then how can you make your game, your sessions more game related? So still at this age, they want a game because that's what it's about. It's about football.
Does that ever change, even post-teenage years?
I don't think it does, Steve. I don't think it does. But I think at this age, sometimes we neglect that fact that they still want a game because you're looking at that development stage and you're looking at to push them on in regard to like the technical and tactical side of the game.
A lot of the answers we're getting through are saying that they differ. There's a lot of difference between some want to be there to play, some want to win, some just want to learn, and it's sort of managing that difference and how much of a challenge that can be. So that's
and it's then how we relate to them in relation to that buy-in and getting that connection. So that's why I think it's really important to get that connection. So if you know what they're there for, that will help you in regard to one, dealing with their emotions and their behaviours, but also help you in regard to developing session plans that are applicable for their needs.
So yeah.
Okay, I was going to give you a little bit of an example here from my kind of, I've just started it. I've been at MK Dons now since November, this is giving me kind of a bit of an opportunity to reflect in regard to how I connect with groups of people. The boys didn't really know me, and I got chucked in to support the delivery of the NCS, which is National Citizens Service Award. None of the boys wanted to do it. It was like, why are you getting us to do this? So up against the brick wall straight away. I weren't the primary deliverer. I was just there to support. So I was like, can I deliver an arrival activity every week, a starter activity? So they begrudgingly let me do that. And I did little activities every week just so that the boys could see me and get to know me, and then I could also get to know them. So like I did signature hunting one day, I did rock, paper, scissors, stones, my version of it one day, and then it built up and by the last week, so we had 5 weeks of NCS, I gave them a dance off. So I gave them made some dance moves, wrote them on a piece of paper, got a group leader. They all went off into their groups. The group leader had to read off the sheet how this dance went, and then eventually, once they thought they'd got the dance moves down, I put the music on and they danced to it. And it was Candy by Cameo. And they all got it, and it was just like hysterical in the group. But the thing that worked, and the realization for me that I connected with the boys, is on the next Saturday. So we did NCS on a Friday. On the Saturday, we had an FA Cup game, and we won the game. And unbeknown to me, in the change room afterwards, they had Candy on the stereo, and they was doing the dance. So I kind of knew then that I kind of got a little bit of buy-in and a little bit of connection with them. So, but it was just things like that, and it's about trial and error, and not actually. It's about making little steps and little progressions with them, because you're not going to win them all over at the same time. So that was that, and just reflecting on regard to how I connected, and I just wanted to share that in relation to the conversation. So next bit, stages of development, and I've stolen some of the words from the Thrive approach, and I know Sally mentioned Thrive approach in her presentation, but I think the titles are really good in regard to being, doing, thinking, identification or identity, skills and structure, and that separation. So in regard to those stages, as we said before, that attachment theory starts at the very beginning of their lives, and it will be like their primary caregiver. In relation to the doing bit, they start exploring, and they build on that connection between the early years up to 18 months. Then from 3 to 7, they're beginning to get that sense of self. And I think this is really important, by the age of 6, the brain is 95% of an adult size, but it doesn't to say it is an adult brain, right? And so you need to think about that. It's not an adult brain yet, but it's the size of an adult brain. And then we get to this kind of difficult, or coming into that difficult stage, the 7 to 11, and then 11 to 18. So usually children between the ages of 7 and 11 will have their moral compass, and their moral compass is supported by their parents or their carers or who they live with. So our morals, values, and the roles and responsibilities we play within our unit, our family unit, are instilled in us between those years. But then between the ages of 11 and 18, we start developing, and we start to become more independent, and we start reviewing or challenging the beliefs that have been instilled in us, because that's when that pruning stage starts in regard to our brain. So the prefrontal cortex of your brain isn't developed, and that's the part of the brain where all the problem solving happens. And it will increase and decrease in fitness in regard to that myelination in regard to your brain. When if you do something over a repetitive time, we know that the myelination develops and becomes thicker. But if you don't use that skill, that's when it will decrease. And then if you don't believe in something, or you don't value something, again, it will decrease in its value in regard to the myelin sheath. And that's when you get that push and pull between maybe your parents or people that are trying to set boundaries, because if the child or young person doesn't agree with that boundary, that's when they will challenge it. Okay, so at this stage, it's everything. They're reworking everything. They're reworking. Their brain is reworking, and their brain is retraining. But it's also a really, really good time to support them, because the brain is a malleable object. So we actually can try and change and shape their thinking if we have the skills to do so, and if we have a little bit of knowledge that this is when it actually happens. Okay, so there's a really good window of opportunity to support their development at this stage. But this happens at this stage as well. So 2 things happen when they're going through it. We have puberty and we have adolescence. So again, Steve, this is my chat box challenge. Who knows the difference?
No, not allowed to use Google.
No Googling.
Although I'm going to.
You're not allowed to.
people are
Just
thinking.
thinking out
"Oh,
loud, puberty and adolescence. I got no idea. I wouldn't have a clue. Libby, do you know? I think is it? Well, no, go on, Libs. What do you think?
No, you go.
I was going. I was going to suggest that puberty is more physical and adolescence is more psychological, but that's probably rubbish.
I thought adolescence was, yeah, Tom. Adolescence is the stage, puberty the process. I was going along those lines, but couldn't get it out in words.
I don't think I'm far off what Rich Wade says. Rich is clever, so I don't think I've done too bad.
Rich has put puberty is the physical, and yeah, adolescence is feelings.
And Matt Draper, so not too bad.
So the puberty is a process to reach sexual maturity. So correct. And puberty we see. So we see the growth spurts and we see the development. We can see it. In regard to adolescence, it's that transition between childhood and adulthood. And again, it takes place between those ages of 10 to 25. Okay, and that's when the brain is reworking and reshaping. So puberty on average, so just if we look at the brain development, is between 10 and 25. So you've got that big span. In regard to puberty, the average for a female is 11, but can take place between 8 and 13. And then for the males, it's 12 on average, but can happen between the ages of 9 to 14. So within that time span, so the lowest is like 8 years, all the way to 25 years, you've got all of that growth. Some of it is physical and you can see it, but quite a lot of it is in regard to the brain developing. So it's that mental, emotional side, which you can't see. So in relation to that, what does that mean for you and your players? So again, there's a chat box challenge. What could it mean for you and your players, knowing that? So you know that the feeling brain is 5 times more powerful than the thinking brain. You know that the prefrontal cortex is the last part of the brain to develop. Now we know that we can see those physical changes, but we can't see the emotional changes. What does that mean for your players?
Jackie, can you see the chat? I know Libby and I can. Can you see the chat?
I can get the chat up.
Yeah, just if there's anything that, because there's a lot of good stuff coming into chat and Q&A. So obviously Libby's on top of it, but might be good for you to see. While you're doing that, so, and I'm not very good at this, as you can tell, my brain's going all over the place. Now, if somebody is physically maturing, going through puberty early, does that suggest that psychologically they are too, or are they not related whatsoever?
They won't. It doesn't have to be related.
Right.
So again, it's in regard to your brain develops in regard to the experiences that you have. Right. So there might be some connotation in regard to like that actually could have a negative impact. So it's no correlation, because like when I was going through that maturity side, I suffered quite a bit. So my thought process would be negative, but some people might have sailed through it and it would be okay. So then if I've got negative thoughts, then it might take me longer to reach my peak in regard to my brain development, because I've got to challenge those negative thoughts with positive thoughts.
Right.
There's quite a few answers in here if you can see any of these.
Yeah, strong emotional reactions, excellent physical changes, anxiety, self-awareness, embarrassment, brilliant. So these are all the emotional words rather than those characteristic words that we had at the beginning. Excellent. Brilliant. Unless you know your players, you are likely to miss elements of their emotional development. Yep. Brilliant.
Brilliant answers, guys.
I like I've not had, no one's ever mentioned that fatigue one, which is brilliant, because actually we've got about the fatigue, and specifically boys, they need more sleep during this period of time. And like but when they come to training, you're always trying to get them to be intense and keep their intensity up. But actually, they might not be able to do it because they actually might be too fatigued to get involved at that pace and that intensity. Yep, personal relationships with teams. Yep. Again, it's that fitting in. So you might, and that's when you get that kind of the groups and the segregation of people and the isolation of people. So what I've got, so, and I think some of it you've already put there, but I've maybe written it slightly different. So I've got, there's a lot of social skills. So you might get more arguments and overreaction. That kind of links to that last one I saw in the chat box about the peers. There's a tendency to make inappropriate remarks or off-the-cuff remarks because they may be trying to look big or trying to answer you back and make themselves look like that they're not being belittled. Difficulty grasping the moral of a story. There might be a loss of ability to plan ahead or work out what the results of an action will be. So they're more likely to take risks at this age. And you might have read recently about more male suicides within the teenage age bracket because one, they're trying to impress their peers. So it's like they drive erratically, and a lot of death rate is through like motor accidents at this age group, or because they can't take all of the changes that they're going through and they're being isolated, or their friends are not at the same point as them with their emotional journey than they are, and then they commit suicide. Okay, so it's that risk and reward again, but they are more prone to taking riskier decisions and taking part in more risk averse activities. And you might have recognized some of these in yourself as a teenager or in the teenagers that you coach. So that might have been you, Steve, that argumentative and overreacting one.
I don't know what you're trying to say, Jack. Was it anyone who's at the FA?
Okay, so what does this mean for us? So in relation to the fact that they're going through those changes emotionally and psychologically, the behaviors will change. So their brains are actually restructuring at this period of time. So the behaviors are part of their development. It's not just their hormones. Okay, so the behaviors are based in regard to the fact that they do have stronger emotions at this time. And as I said prior, the brain develops in regard to the experiences you have. So if you haven't come across an experience, that's where they might get scared, angry, or emotional because they don't know how to deal with it. So for us as coaches, it might be, we need to show you how to do this, or we embed it into our practice so it becomes repetition, and so that they know what to do the next time, or we give them questions so that they can problem solve and that they can probe and question their teammates. Okay, so if we implement this within our session structure, we're actually going to support them in regard to, one, dealing with their emotions, but in regard to they will understand how to problem solve more, and it will become an experience for them which will then be ingrained in their brain, and that's how we can support the restructure and the brain regrowth. Okay, it will have an impact on their relationships and they will continue to push the boundaries, and that's just because they want to know where their own boundaries are. It's not because they don't agree with what you're saying, it's because they want to test out how far they can go themselves personally and what fits in with their own beliefs. So the brain needs to retrain. So a question for you, and it might be something that you reflect on after the workshop, is, do we then need to kind of retrain how ourselves in regard to how we plan our sessions? So is that something for us to consider? Because if their brain is retraining at that time, if we know that now, can we actually plan sessions that are going to be more appropriate for them during this phase of their life? Don't know.
Huge questions.
It could be like, it might be, what would you need to think of now going back and planning your sessions? It might be you consider how you work differently with your players going forward, and it might be thinking about how you connect to their world. So they're just kind of some of the things that I think of when I see this page. And it might be remembering that it. So does your it align with their it? And is the it always the same?
Oh,
It's a bit heavy.
Jackie,
that's what my brain feels like at the moment.
Sorry, Libby, I won't go over because there's a question, I think.
Yeah, there's just a quick question here from Richard. Part of learning is sitting in discomfort. I presume teenagers are more sensitive to this feeling.
Yeah, yeah, they will be, because again, it's they don't know the answer. So if they don't know the answer, that's going to trigger an emotion in their brain which they fight against. So, but it's, you can still put them into that zone, because actually it could help them develop, but it's how you put them into that zone. So for instance, it could be within a scenario within football, but a scenario that they might have seen. So it could be something that's happened at a weekend game, like in a Premiership, and you can bring that to life within your session. It's a problem, they've got to deal with it. It might stretch and challenge them, but actually they know that someone else has already achieved it because it was on the telly on the weekend.
Cool.
So you can put them into those uncomfortable situations, as long as it might have happened before, so it's been a real life experience and they know that someone's got out of it. So you need to just kind of try to relate it.
Cool. Thank you.
Does that answer this question?
Yes. Richard, if there's anything else, you can stick another question in. Oh, he said yes, that did.
Right, so I thought this was the picture or the slide that got me to develop this CPD event, and because I saw it and I was like, oh my god. So this is what's happening during the teenage or the average teenager. So this is what their brain or the compartments of their brain will look like. That's what is going on in their head. But then you need to consider that they have life, school, work, family, first love, all of those other external things that are going on as well. So that's why adolescents during this stage, one, take more risks, because sometimes their ego is bigger than the rules. The risk taking is a bigger element than worrying about the consequences. Okay. They want to express more, they've got more emotions in their head. So like you can see how big that love lobe is. All of the sections are built mainly on like emotions like self-image, self-worth. So all of those emotions are bigger at this time. They make impulsive decisions because one thing will take over their brain more than the other. Okay, they're trying to fit in, but they're also trying to find their own limits. So again, there's another clash in regard to the fact that they're trying to fit in with a peer group, but they're also trying to find out who they are for themselves. So I want you to think about that brain and what's going on, and then think about, again, what could it mean to you in relation to considering now when you're planning. So what might you now need to think about when you're planning future sessions for this age group, players in the youth development phase? What might you need to think about now?
Jackie, I'm reflecting a little bit.
Oh yeah, I can see you thinking.
Did you hear it?
Tumbleweed was going like that.
Just while people are doing that, it might be of interest, it might not be, but so when over the years, before I landed that role as you did as a CTD, I worked in academies and I was always put for under 14s, 15s, 16s. And I think I was quite good at it, looking back, and I think I was, because I worked with players and they all seemed to like me, and a lot of them have gone on to make careers in the game. So I got this kind of reputation in the FA as a youth development expert, like, yeah, you know teenagers. But occasionally when I do a guest session with teenagers, and interestingly, Rich is on tonight, Rich Wade, Seven-Side Nuclear, I did a bit with them before Christmas, and I really struggled. And I took it really personally. Now, reflecting now, I probably treated the lads there as I would with Bristol City's under-16s. And that's completely wrong, because Bristol City's under-16s had this kind of scholarship at the end. They were there for different reasons. I took it really personal, the drive home from Eardsley and other places, but this is the one I'm thinking about, because they just didn't want to know as much. And yeah, I've probably not realised what their it was, have I?
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, that's got me thinking. So I'm not an expert at all.
No, but no, you are, because you've actually now recognised something, and then you're thinking about how you could implement it going forward.
Okay.
Somebody mentioned to me when I first started, so I went and observed some of the games at MK Dons when I went there, and one of the full part-time members of staff said to me, "Oh, there should be more people like you." So I went, "What do you mean?" He went, "Well, you don't change in relation to like who you're dealing with." So I went, I'm not going to change. So but I think I think I still am. I think I'm seen as being, I don't know, like how I interact with the boys, it doesn't change just because they're at an elite level. Okay. Why do I need to put them on? I don't need to put them on a pedestal. They don't need to shake my hand. Why do they need to shake my hand? They don't need to shake my hand. I've not earned that right for them to shake my hand. They're just kids at the end of the day. They're kids playing at a different level, but they're kids. Yeah. And I think sometimes, and I think in regard to that, the growth and development rate of the brain, I think some people sometimes forget that they are kids. And because they look like men,
yeah,
or they look like women, we treat them like adults, and their brains might not actually have developed the same rate as their body. And that's what we forget, because we just see like a 17-year-old that's like built like a man in front of us, but actually his brain might be still 12. So it's just, so I'll always start with a silly game just to see like what they're like, and you'll know that the ones that want to learn and develop, or their brains have developed, will look at you and like think you're mad in the head. But then you've got them, you know, it's a 5-minute silly game at the beginning. It's the way that you connect, the way that they can get to understand you. But actually, that little connection activity has given you a really good gauge of who those players are. And I think we'll go through, I think it's on the next slide or the slide after. I think that we forget, when we're working with like the foundation phase, it's about fun, engaging, and safe environments. And sometimes when we get to the YD phase, we forget the fun bit. We engage them, but we engage them in a different way, because we think they need that technical detail, and it has to be about technical and tactical, but we forget the fun, we forget how we engage.
I agree. Jackie, don't do a Stuart James on us. When Stu was on, it got to 10 o'clock in the morning, we had an hour, didn't it? He said, "I thought we're only halfway through." So crack on, don't let me interrupt.
No, sorry, I've got ownership in there, sharing ideas, relevant, brilliant, relevant not only to game but to the individual, brilliant, competitive, brilliant. That it has to be competitive, specifically at this age. They want the competition, so don't neglect that. And I'm going to say in a minute, don't neglect the technical detail as well. Brilliant. So this is what my clicker didn't work, Steve. See, I thought I was being really good here with my clicker. This is what teenagers are used to. So I think they're used to games and matches, so you put that in there. They want that technical detail, so don't neglect the technical detail. They want it current. It needs to be competitive. They need to have choice. So I think Sally put about ownership, developing ownership. Empower them a little bit more. Give them choice. Keep it real. Link things to realistic scenarios, things that they may have seen. Give them role play. So give the captain doesn't always have to be the same captain every week. Allow there to be leaders on the pitch. Change their playing positions. You'll get more technical and tactical details out if the striker is a defender one week, because they'll actually understand how to move away from the defender if they're a defender. Think about the flexibility in regard to your approach. Don't just have a plan A, have a plan A, B, and C, because it won't work all the time because their brains are restructuring, but you'll become frustrated, not them. So try to be flexible in your approach and try to be accessible, but also in regard to that accessibility, remember what is available to them. So sometimes they come under a lot of scrutiny from us as coaches, but also their parents if they're playing at an elite level, or if they're moving towards an elite level, they become under so much scrutiny from their parents, but also they might come under scrutiny from their peers, because with social media being so accessible now, stuff gets put on there that actually they might not want other people to see. So think about that, because that can have a knock-on effect in regard to their self-esteem and their self-worth. So this is what they say. So I've given you some examples, but these are the kind of things that the players say. As usual with these kind of diagrams, the bigger the word, the more they want. And then in relation to girls, they want that. They want fun, friends, and fitness. So I know for myself, when I do sessions with females for the first time, I have chat breaks because they want to talk. They want to mix with their mates. So I include chat breaks when I work with a group of girls for the first time. Okay. When I work with boys, I try to make sure it's still fun. It does need to have a team approach and a competitive edge, but they need to feel entertained and they need to have that fun, because that helps improve their confidence. Couple of little things so you're aware, and I think I actually reread this slide yesterday and I thought to myself, oh, there's some really good cues in here. So in regard to boys as babies and children, they look at objects more than faces. They have poor concentration, and this is generic, not everyone will have it, and they have poor finer motor skills. But in regard to adolescents and adults, they focus more on systems of work, and they like to make lists, and they're better at detecting small movements. And then I thought to myself, well, how can I actually relate that to football? And then I thought about formations and tactics in regard to formations and how they play out, and looking at stats of other teams in regard to what they do, and looking at scanning, because I reckon that they'd be better at scanning in regard to the finer detail. So I kind of tried to marry it with elements of football then. And then in regard to the girls, they look at faces more than objects, so it's the opposite. They have far more better concentration and they develop social skills more. So in regard to that, it might be more teamwork for girls, more questioning of girls, because they will answer you back. They'll be able to retain more information, so you can actually scaffold your learning more than the boys. So the boys, you might only be able to give 3 bits of information, but with the girls, you might be able to give 5 bits of information, and they will notice small differences. So in regard to you as a coach, if you're having a bad day, they'll notice it more than the boys. So it's thinking about how you can use these little bits and pieces that I'm giving you to support you in regard to developing your sessions further. And then the impact on the session. So I think we said earlier, what is our role? And I think during You could be all of those 4 things during one session, because some of your players will want you there as a coach to give you technical advice, to give you tactical advice, and to support you in regard to their player development. Some people will want you as a mentor, and they just need a chat, and you're just their outlet that day. Some people are looking at you for a role model because, and specifically on a match day, if your behaviors are poor, they're going to pick up those behaviors. But then when they do that on a training day, you're going to pull them up. So you need to be a positive role model on training day and on a match day. And your behaviors have got to model what your values are, because that will help them again retrain, and that will help them act accordingly. So what do we need to provide in order to help them? And we need to create a positive learning environment. We need to develop ownership. We need to empower them, and we need to provide learning opportunities for them. Okay. So knowledge is power. You might need to think about what your expectations are from your session, because they might now be different in relation to the little bit of advice or information I've given you this evening. So your expectations might change, but your expectations of your group might be one thing, but your expectations of certain individuals might be slightly different because of where they are on their personal development stage. It might change now what you expect to see from this age group. And I know Steve's already thinking about, like, I can see it now in his face. He's like still thinking about it.
Am I that easy to read?
But you might think about, like, what do you expect to see now at this age group? Because it will be different, and every session will be different in regard to what you expect to see. Their behaviors will be different because they are trying to challenge you, because they're trying to find their way. So they're looking for you as a guide. They're looking to you to support their development. They're looking at you to help retrain their brain. But ultimately, we need to know what success looks like. So what does success look like for them? Again, might be different to what success looks like for you. Because success for you might be winning a league, but success for them might be winning occasionally, starting every week, playing in a certain position. That might be their success. Their success might not be getting a trophy at the end of the year. Okay, so what does success look like? We need to think about, be patient. Try to be patient, because in regard to trying to support them in regard to retraining their brain, we need to think about repetition. And we talk a lot about repetition at the younger age group, but when the more experiences they have, the quicker their brain will retrain and the pruning process will stop, and you will have supported that development. And 21 repetitions becomes a habit. So if you're doing something over and over and over again, which is good practice, those behaviors are going to be instilled in your players. So just consider that in regard to, if you, it's like manners. If you act accordingly in regard to your own personal behaviors, they're going to pick that up. So if you ask them how they are every day when they turn up, and you do that little bit of connection, they're going to think that's good model, being a good role model, and they will then start to do that. So what you do helps shape them. Think about being consistent. So consistent in your approach. Think about helping them build those new neuro pathways. Okay, so repetition is key still at this age group, because, as I said, their brains are still malleable, so we can still help them develop. Just a couple of things that you could be thinking about. So I know some of these words came up earlier, so I know that confusion definitely came up and vulnerability definitely came up. So what's happening is they feel confused. Let them know that they're not stupid but developing. They might fear of failure, so support them in regard to validation, making them feel worthy when they have achieved. Not all the time, when they've achieved. Okay, they will be embarrassed, but don't nag. Okay, it achieves nothing, but try to highlight success. So if they have done something, highlight its success, but don't embarrass them in front of everyone. Okay, don't they will feel shame, so don't shame or mock them. And I've put use their names because sometimes their mates will use nicknames, but that won't be okay for you as a coach to use. So again, that's one, understanding your players, but two, actually use their real names. And then they will be vulnerable. So think about how you build a relationship and love them for who they are, because they are individuals. There's not a group. So something sticks in my mind from the weekend. The boys got a little bit of a dressing down, but they all got a dressing down. And actually, it was only 3 or 4 individuals that needed to be told what they'd done wrong and how they could have supported the team more. But all the group got it. And it shouldn't be that. They're individuals. And then this is my little final thought. So the teenage brain is special. The brain is who you are, but more importantly, what you have and what you have the chance to become. Your own brain, you own your brain, and with a little bit of understanding on how brain develops, you have the opportunity to control and shape development. So now that I've given, or hopefully I've given you a little bit of insight in regard to the magic of the teenage brain, you might be able to support and shape the players that you're working with. I hope you found it interesting. I think we've got a little bit of time for questions if there is any, but those are my contact details, and I'd really value the feedback, because this is not the finished product, it's a work in progress, and I'm looking to diversify with a male only course and a female only course, so feedback would be really welcome. Thank you, Steve.
Don't thank me, Jackie. Crikey.
Thank you, Libby.
Jackie, we haven't got a lot of time.
But I apologise, that's me.
No, it's not. It's not. There's some lovely comments come through. So I've just got a question, and I'm the boss, so I'm allowed to ask it. Did I hear 21 repetitions, or did I imagine it? Did you say 21?
No, so like 21. So on average, if you do something 21 times, it becomes a habit.
I like that. I like that. I like numbers. I need that. I wish it was an even number, but I can cope with an odd number. I'm going to say 22.
When I started going back to the gym, I just went to the gym. It didn't matter what I was doing. I went to the gym. I went onto the exercise bike. I wasn't probably doing any good to my body, but I got to the gym, and it's now a habit.
Right.
So
it's a bit like me in the pub, Jackie, unfortunately.
Yeah, you in the pub and a beer.
Unfortunately, although not at the moment, obviously.
That's an ingrained habit.
Jackie, it's been absolutely mind-blowingly brilliant. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I hope people have enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And the questions are still flying in. I'm so sorry, guys. There are some incredible questions here.
If you want to yeah, if you want to screenshot me if we can screenshot the questions, send them to me, and then I can send back answers to like you, Libby, so you can send them out to people.
Great.
Jackie, are we allowed to send the presentation, or is that copyright?
I haven't allowed people to have it yet, but because it's you, Steve.
Oh yeah, but am I allowed to share it with everyone else?
Yeah, I'll allow you to.
Wow.
As long as people don't go putting it everywhere.
There was just a couple of slides that were incredible, I thought. I mean, well, it was all brilliant, but a couple of slides I'd need to see again and want to kind of digest. But
yeah, I'll PDF it over to you.
Bless you. Libby's just trying to work out how to screenshot that. Her brain's not fully developed yet, Jackie.
No, I've still got 2 years, Jackie, till I'm 25. Hopefully my brain will grow a bit more.
Right. Thanks ever so much. Libs, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. We will send it out within the next few days, and it will all be yours. Make sure you click it and download it straight away, so then it will stay there. Otherwise, it expires and it goes. So click it straight away.
And then we have to send it again, don't we, Libby?
Yeah. So yeah, we will see you on the next webinar, which is Saturday.
Yeah. Chris Hargreaves. Any gas heads? Chris Hargreaves is on. He's academy manager at Bristol Rovers.
Yeah, not too late to book on. So if you're keen, drop us an email. Great.
Thanks,
Thanks
Libs.
for joining.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm going for a lie down. Bye.
Bye.